Hey guys, welcome to TwitchCon Dev Day, and I'm really excited to start to go deep into PUBG. So, how many folks here are familiar with PUBG? Pretty much everybody, yeah. So I discovered PUBG on Twitch. I was watching Summit play, and I thought that the game looked crazy and really interesting and cool, and then immediately went to Steam and bought it. And I was very interested in doing some market research into it at the time. 600 hours later, I am pretty far along with my market research, but still studying it. So I think what makes PUBG special is, I think, really two things. So one of those things is that it's a really gritty, realistic battle royale game, and in an increasingly busy genre. I think that the kind of tone and theme sets it apart and makes it a very special game. And the second thing that I think makes PUBG really unique is, the approach that Bluehole and PUBG Corp take, and the way that they approach third-party developers in development. And I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that they've done on the site and some of the things that we've done with them. And then I'm actually going to turn the mic over to Brian from MadGlory and PUBG, who's going to walk through how they actually architected the underlying systems to make those things possible. So just to look at a couple of the integrations and things that PUBG has launched, one of the things was really interesting that they did. So they had a massive esports tournament, I think in middle of August, in Germany. And as part of that, they put together this ability to actually view multiple perspectives at the same time and incorporated leaderboards into that as well. So you got a much, much richer viewer experience than I ever thought was possible. So this idea of really thinking about and curating that esports professional competitive experience, I think PUBG is on the vanguard of that, and they've done some really interesting work on the space. And they actually, just to kind of go a little bit deeper into that integration and launch, a couple of the other things that they did with that are launching actual unique items. So they had this ringside set. There's another set as well during the tournament that went along with that. So if you visited the event in Cologne, you actually got those items in game, and it's really, really valuable. So about a week before the game launched, about a week before that event happened, Hyewon and I, Hyewon's in the back in a very bright pink hoodie there. You can still see him. Hyewon and I were talking, and he said, hey, it would be awesome if we could actually reward people not just who visit the event live, but people who actually are watching on Twitch with some kind of in-game reward. So Tim had talked a bit about drops. I know from my experience at EA that drops is an extremely effective way to drive gamer retention. But one of the things that we talked about, and we worked with Muxy, who's a third-party developer, on actually building out, and we did this in about a week, is this ability to actually vote on who is going to win. And if you actually voted correctly, then you got a crate. So we saw 70% of Twitch viewers participated in voting, and they won 300,000 crates. And that's pretty hard to do. To actually win a crate, you have to pick correctly who's going to win the round. And there's 25 teams, so this isn't like a 5-on-5 match. This is 25 times 4. Last thing I want to talk a little bit about. You guys might have seen is I think PUBG correctly recognized that streamers are a very powerful way to drive engagement with the game, and they built an incredible item program. You can see here, this is all of Shroud's recent kit. So awesome M16 skin. He's got his varsity jacket, face mask, got his gloves. And we've seen streamers really lean into this and get very jazzed up and excited about it. Here's a guy named Dr. Disrespect who's going to be talking a little bit about it. And there's no audio. But he's really excited. Oh my God, is he excited? Anyway, so just to kind of draw this section to a close before passing over to Brian. I think that PUBG has really been able to ignite the battle royale genre, and they've done that in a couple ways. So they've really thought about that esports and spectator experience. They've used some interesting mechanics like voting to actually drive user interactivity. And I think the first game developer that starts to really think of how to match this not just with user-generated content, or sorry, not just with official tournaments, but with user-generated content is going to really strike out big time. And they've also been very effective in using items to drive streamer engagement. And lastly, they've had this approach from the beginning, and Brian's going to talk a lot more about that, of having an open API, having an open way for third-party developers to build on top of the things that they've done that is really driving the next generation of innovation. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Corrigan.
Having me today. Big green button. OK, we're good. So yeah, as Michael mentioned, I'm studio director for PUBG MadGlory, and we are one of 3 studios that PUBG maintains in the US. And the main kind of role of our studio in the PUBG world, in the PUBG company, is to create a lot of platform and out-of-game features. So this would be things like progression and leaderboards and economy and identity, things like that. And then second, our charge is really to find new ways to extend these features outside of the game. And so one of the ways we do that is through our partner API. And so because of that, it's our job to support great partners like Twitch, this amazing event, as well as other partner developers and even knowing a growing open source community. Pardon me. So Michael shared a little bit about the programs that we did with Twitch this year. And many of these are powered by the partner API. And so I know we have kind of both game developers and extension developers in the audience, right? So I'm going to go through a little bit today about why we have kind of invested very early on in this game's life cycle into this API, as well as really how we designed it and how you can design it too. And then for the extension developers, how you could take advantage of this API to go and build really cool things for PUBG players. And little hint, there's a lot of them, which is great. And then some of the things we plan for the future. So if you play PUBG, you'll know that despite the size of our player base, we're still a very new game and a really young studio. And the funny thing now is that our little company isn't so little anymore, and we're really thinking these days about what we want to be and what we want to mean to our players. And so we see PUBG as a game and this sort of global IP. And then finally, we really do think of it as a platform that partners and players can extend on. And that's one of our sort of core ideas of the game going forward. And really some of what we're working on now behind the scenes is going to completely change how players think and interact with PUBG, which we're all really excited about. And at this point in our growth, it's really important that we have a good on-ramp for partners that kind of share our vision and can add a lot of value for our players. So the API, the partner API, was launched in March 2018. So to me, this feels like 10 years ago now. Like, that's like forever ago. But I mean, it was just earlier this year. And within maybe the first week, we had around, 10,000 people sign up for it. 10,000 developers sign up to use the API, which was really exciting. And we like data at PUBG. And let me advance the slide. There we go. And so we analyzed a lot of what people wanted to do with it. And we found there was some definite kind of centers around certain things people wanted to do. And one thing you find right away is that there's really this direct correlation between the amount of data and the type of data, the various types that we're able to make available, and then the types of partners, obviously, that we can then work with. So when we sort of survey the landscape, we sort of see partners kind of clustered around several ideas. So one would be these sort of like stats and analytics websites, right? So this is like player performance and comparing one player to another, comparing one squad to another, that sort of thing. So if you're a League fan, this is like LOL King or Elo Fant. If you're a Dota fan, this is like Dota Buff. If you're a PUBG fan like me, this is OPGG, right? And then there's these sort of tournament websites. So this is Faceit, Battlefy, Challenge. Of course, we have a great partnership with Faceit. We love them. They've been a great partner for us. SmashGG and others. And then there's kind of coaching and training. So this would be things like Gamer Sensei, Dojo Madness. There's obviously a big partner community out here that if you release a partner API early in your game's life cycle, you get to take advantage of all of this growing ecosystem and venture capital is being invested in that space. There's also fantasy. So DraftKings, for instance, has a great fantasy esports program now. Alphabet, ESL Fantasy, and then esports leagues. Our own, esports, our O&O esports league uses our partner API, as well as other regional operators, college leagues, and things like that. So if you sort of look at these various data types, and this is how we think about it, the sort of easiest thing for you as a developer probably to expose to partners is your sort of player profile data. So this is like your lifetime history, right? This is the number of chicken dinners that Michael had, and I'm going to verify whether or not he actually got one, his first one. Okay, see me afterwards. We'll find out if that's true. All right, so whatever, man. And then the next one is it's really match summaries or kind of session data. So, right, so every game you sit down, you play, stuff happens. Hopefully it's really fun and engaging. And then at the end, there's some sort of summary of like what happened. So match summary, session summary, we call it a match summary. That's kind of the next thing that's probably the easiest thing for you to then expose. So when your game is over, you sort of capture that and you send it up somewhere to a server and you expose it. So somebody was asking earlier about what options are there for storage. Amazon already has 1 million now, and so does the other cloud providers. We use Amazon for ours. And then there's this telemetry log. So this is a time-indexed list of things that happened. And so, for instance, a lot of the coaching apps, coaching companies really want telemetry data because they want to understand what happened when and what could you have done differently to have a better outcome in the game. So if you're a league fan, they're going to all tell you to farm earlier and farm more. Things get more complicated for different types of games, but that telemetry log is important for that. And then identity allows third-party sites, just like Twitch is offering a really great identity API. We also have one we're bringing out, so that when PUBG players sign up for your service and they say that their in-game name is Michael Lewis and I got a chicken dinner on the first time I ever played, you can verify that that actually is Michael Lewis, and then you can go check the stats. Again, we're going to check that. And then the next thing that we sort of look at, and this is where things start to kind of get a little bit harder, right, is matchmaking. So we recently exposed to some beta partners our matchmaking API, our custom match API. Everything you can do in-game with custom matches in PUBG, you can do through the API. And it's really powerful. You can configure squads, who the spectator is, what maps, starting conditions, all this, and we allow you to schedule the match at any point in the future. So it's kind of a match reservation API. And when it starts, we'll actually fire the server up, we'll send you some info about it, and when you're done, you can actually go back to number 2 there and get the match summary. The next one is a streaming telemetry log, which is very cool too. So this allows you to for example, get kills real time as they happen. This is a really common request. We want to know who's alive and who's dead in a match that's happening right now that we created with the custom match API. And then sort of maybe the hardest thing is starting to get into some really low-level state control of your game servers. This gets a little tricky, but this is kind of where we're headed more towards the rest of the year. So, okay, so how the heck do we do this? And I'm a technical person, so I have to make technical, complex drawings, but it's actually not as bad as this drawing looks. Really, we have kind of these, we look at it as kind of these 3 pieces, really. There's the game platform. So these are our core services like matchmaking, telemetry, stats, social, profile, accounting, economy, identity. There's tons of them, right? And these are located for us, all over the place. We're a big company. And then there's our game server fleet. So these are actually when you play the game and you're connected, and hopefully you're having a really good game experience, this is the servers that you're talking to. And then at the bottom box is sort of our partner API system, which sort of connects to all these things. And the idea is to kind of keep these systems pretty loosely coupled. So we connect them in only 3 ways, and it's not crazy. We expose a data lake to every one of these systems. And a data lake, if you've never heard the concept before, it's like a very fancy hipster way of saying like a petabyte-sized database. So you can write stuff to it, and you actually don't really know what goes in, and then usually the indices are kept separate from the data itself. It's a data lake. It's not actually crazy complicated. And then the second thing we expose is a event stream. So any one of these systems can write interesting events to this stream, and they can be pulled off. And these days, that's actually much easier than it used to be, because companies like Amazon expose things like Kinesis, which is great. We use Kinesis a little bit. We also use Apache Kafka, which is really great. If you've done any server work, you're probably familiar with these things. And then the last piece we expose is a control plane. So this is almost in reverse. This is where you can call the partner API, and then we will tell our system to do things. So there's this control plane that flows through the system, right? And that was there before. And so if you have these types of systems, the partner API just essentially is a secure way to hijack control of the control plane. And for anybody interested, all of our backend services are written in either C# or we write all the open API stuff in Go, and everything is deployed in Kubernetes. Cool. OK, so engineering bits, kind of interesting. But maybe more importantly are all the really other resources we have to provide to make the experience great. Because as a game developer, you're focused on your game and you're focused on your platform, but really we try to take a really holistic view and make a great experience for partners, as good of experience for partners as we really want to make for our players. And so there's a couple pieces that we built to make that work. The first is the developer portal. So you guys saw earlier, dev.twitch.tv. We have dev.pubg.com. So you can go there, sign up, get a key, copy and paste an example right away, and you have data. It's pretty cool. We maintain a public bug list. So API bugs in some ways have a very high priority, right? Because if there's a breaking API bug that took down the custom game service and all of our custom game partners are down, that's potentially, that one bug affects tons of players. It's a disproportionate amount of players for a localized bug. So we give them very high priority. We came up with different terms of service for our API users than we have for other partners. Because in many cases, we understand that partners want to somehow monetize their systems. And that's great. We're OK with that. We'll work with you to make sure that we can support you. One thing that's really fun, swag for developer hackathons. So we get to do that too. We get contacted a lot. There's really not that many open game APIs. So we get contacted by a lot of hackathons saying, can we kind of feature your API? We want people to build cool stuff. And then, oh, by the way, can you send the prizes? So the answer to that is always, of course we can send prizes. We have all kinds of great swag made by our marketing team. So we're happy to do that. And then probably most importantly is our biz, our humans. Humans are always the most important. So in our case, that's our biz dev contact, Tom Carmona, who's probably standing next to Hyoan. I can't really see that far, although I actually can see Hyoan's pink. Yeah, you're right about that. And then also our community advocate, Megan. She's also here too. She eats, sleeps, breathes our Discord, and does everything she can to make sure that our partners have a really good experience. So, in the old days, it was much easier to be a game developer. You could make a game and concentrate on your game. That was great. These days, it's much harder. But there's much more opportunity, right? Because there's this whole great ecosystem of people who want to work with you. And if you're making a game that you expect to have a multi-year arc or free-to-play game or something that's going to last for a while, you really need to be thinking, I think, about these APIs right from the beginning. If you plan for it in the beginning, it's not so bad. It's a little harder to staple them on at the end. And really, if you look around this conference and everything Twitch is doing, this just shows you the potential, right, of thinking about this early on and getting all this stuff in there. Yeah, and I think that's about all I have for today. I think we're going to probably do some